And it's not Wednesday, it is Thursday. Well, for Ross, it's Friday because we're going to give him some love and let him know
I
that
live in the future.
we do understand that he is in a different time zone. But regardless of the time, regardless of the place, it is the Seahawks FanTable Streamcast, and I am Sam. With me is Zed and Ross, and we're here to talk Seahawks.
The day before, or the night before, or however they say that.
Well, technically, since it's your Friday and the game's on Saturday, is it really just the day before?
Yeah.
Well, the game, though, doesn't play till Sunday morning.
Shit.
I don't live that far in the
Still, it's the night before the day before.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, for you, it's the day before.
It's the day before, the morning before.
Oh God, what are we doing?
That takes up way too much effort to think about. But we can talk about the Seahawks and a lot of things to talk about. So obviously we're talking about the playoffs. This is the playoff edition of the podcast. It is the divisional version of it. So this is the fifth year in a row that the Seahawks have made it to the divisional round. Two of those years they got it by being the number one seed. And 3 of the past 5 years, they've had to win an opening wildcard round. 2 of the times this was on the road. This is the first time that they've had to play the wildcard at home with this kind of core Seahawk team with Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, and the current version of our Legion of Boom, even with Earl Thomas gone. We're talking about a really, really strong showing against the Detroit Lions, the 6th seed. We saw a couple of revelations, I would say. Paul Richardson being one, Thomas Rawls being another, the offensive line being a third. You have Doug Baldwin stealing touchdowns. You have a really, really odd choice in who raised the 12th man flag. Let's kind of talk about what you guys saw. Ross, you were watching on TV. Zeb and I, we actually got to watch that game together.
In my seats.
In Ross's seats, he's got a great angle. But Ross, let's talk with you. You were watching this game at your home on TV. What were your takeaways from this game?
I think it was like a huge sense of relief. Like this, I expected to win, but it's still at the same time the season's been up and down. So it's kind of in the back of your mind. But they came out 3-0, I think, to start. But after that, they pretty much dominated the game, and I just felt like my takeaway really was that we're back, baby. But that the shadow of the doubts in the back. It's like, okay, is this the Patriots game where we do awesome, but maybe we're not completely really back? But it felt a little different. I mean, like it just felt like a dominating performance. Lions never got inside our 33 yard line, and it just looked like it was supposed to look. You know what I mean? Like the eye test, you can break down the film, and I saw some people debating whether they did things differently with offensive line or whether they just executed better. And I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think they changed much stuff, but I mean, you can debate all you want. But just like the casual eye test, it looked like it was supposed to look, and that gave me a huge boost for this week's optimism.
I think relief is the right word, ROLAIDS. Because of how up and down it's been, such uncertain feelings going into the game, which Seahawks are going to show up. So yeah, it was a relief to see them go out there and just play solid ball, start to finish. Wasn't perfect, doesn't necessarily leave you feeling like, we're gonna run the table now and get in, but it was good to see them play that kind of football and get a good win at home.
Yeah, for sure. I echo your guys' sentiments as well. The word that I would use is this is like vintage Seahawks. Strong defense, strong running game, and really efficient passing. A lot of those catches are just like amazing circus catches that you kind of don't believe people would make in most circumstances, nor would you see those kind of throws. But they made them, they executed them, and they were perfect. And what Ross was saying earlier was the run blocking was definitely a combination of the line playing well, but also they did a really good job of getting a man on man when they needed to block, which I think helped spring Thomas Rawls for really, really big gains. So that's something that I saw when I was watching that game. If you guys were to pick a superstar for that game, who would you guys have picked? Probably a lot of people will pick either Thomas Rawls or Richardson, but where were you guys with that?
I think those are my two.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, that's where I was at. Watching Thomas Rawls, he looked like he looked last season, and so up to this point, I'm kind of wondering if whether, even though they insisted they didn't bring him back too early, maybe he wasn't quite right, or maybe it just took him that much longer to kind of get back into the flow. I don't know, but he looked, all earlier in the season when he wasn't playing, and I was super optimistic when he came back because, other people had said they were nervous because they didn't see enough body of work, and I'm like, as a running back, you saw half a season. That's a body of work. It's a running back position, and that should be what he looks like. And then he didn't look like that, and I was shocked and dismayed, and made me really pessimistic. And then all of a sudden, he looked like he was supposed to look, and the offensive line, it wasn't amazing, but it was really, really good. I thought McGlowan did a really good job. I thought Justin Britt had an amazing game, and they just started to kind of feel each other again. He kind of was able to time when he should hit the crease, and I don't know exactly what it was, but it looked right, and it looked like Thomas Rawls, and I thought Tom Cable's been catching a lot of flack all season long, and a few people, I wouldn't say owe him an apology, but they can at least lay off him for a week.
Yeah, I would say that my highlight, I would give it to the offensive line because I think it allowed them to do so much. Because it allowed them to do a little bit more play action. It made the running game legit. It gave Doug Baldwin opportunities to run from the slot crossfield and make big catches. Doug Baldwin would maybe be my second player. Obviously, Richardson and Rawls had great games, but the one reason why I want to give Doug Baldwin extra love is he caught 11 catches on 10 targets. The 11th catch being a target for Jermaine Kearse. And Doug Baldwin even said, I ran the wrong route. I wasn't supposed to be there. And he sincerely felt bad. He actually didn't know that he ran the wrong route until he talked to Russell Wilson, and he didn't know that Jermaine was actually the one that was supposed to get that ball.
So why are you giving him credit for essentially making?
Because he caught 11 out of 10 targets. He was only supposed to have been targeted 10 times, and he had over 100% over 100% catch rate. That's impressive.
Right, because he made a mistake.
He capitalized on the mistake. You can't fault that.
I'm not saying he didn't have a good game. It was an awesome game, and the touchdown was really funny to watch. But at the same time, I was like, man, if there's anybody I kind of want to give a little bit of a moral boost to going into the playoffs, because we're probably going to need him at some point, it's Jermaine Kearse. Who needs the confidence boost? And getting a touchdown there would have been helpful.
I agree with that, but I also think that the way
I don't want to it's like a huge deal, but still, Jermaine's going man, I suck all season long in the red zone. I've been dropping stuff or not getting to it, or it's an interception when they're targeting me. So here's my touchdown, and angry Doug Baldwin's like, oh, mine, dibs.
Yeah, but you know what? If I'm going to say someone needs more work, if it's not going to be Jermaine Kearse, it's got to be Stephen Hauschka.
I'm not. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. If somebody needs a confidence, but that's different. Like kickers are different. That's see a wide receiver. It's like the game against Green Bay in the playoffs a couple years ago, right? He just had a horrible game. Every time he was targeted, it was an interception. But then you throw him the game-winning touchdown, and he feels like he contributed, and he goes out and you kind of build confidence with a receiver in a conventional way. With a kicker like Hauschka, it's more like it's akin to like a golf player or golf.
It's a golf swing.
Who's off, and you can't build his confidence by oh man, you really teed that up right, man, or wow, you're really, really wearing really golf-esque socks today. You can't build up confidence in a normal way with a golfer. And I don't think you can build confidence in the normal way with a kicker. You just have to send him to a psychologist or something.
Just keep throwing them out there. It's like basketball players when they're slump. You have to shoot yourself out of a slump.
I think we are kind of, and I think they're kind of doing that thing. There's not a lot of focus. I mean, Hauschka obviously has the yips right now, but nobody's really talking too much about it. And I think that's the right approach. You don't want to focus too much on it because then it becomes a thing, and then his yips become yaps, and you're nowhere.
You just expect him to get it right.
Yeah, and I think it'll come around. You just kind of play through it. You know, he didn't suddenly lose like leg strength. He didn't suddenly not know how to kick. It's just a thing he's got to work out. And he didn't miss any one big kick in a big game that could kind of mentally damage him forever. Like, who's the Minnesota kicker? Blair
Walsh. He got cut.
That dude. I mean, like, that dude got broken, right? He got broken in the last year's playoffs. He missed that winning field goal against Seattle in the playoffs, and after that, he was broken. I mean, it's just how it happens with kickers. But Hauschka hasn't had like a miss that's like, oh my god, now he's never going to be the same. He's just got, you know, something's wrong. But it'll come around. I keep telling myself that.
All right. Well, let's talk about one more thing about the game, because we'll talk about it as we kind of progress. Zeb, we found out while we were walking to the game that Steve Hutchinson was going to raise the flag. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Steve Hutchinson, he was a number 1 round pick. He was an offensive guard out of the University of Michigan, highly touted guy, and he was part of the best left side in the NFL for, you know, maybe a 3 to 4 year stretch. That's about right?
Yeah,
right.
Probably.
And he left Seattle, and he left Seattle under really, really weird conditions. He signed with Minnesota for a 7-year, $49 million contract, and the language in his contract stated that if he played X number of games outside the state of Minnesota, he would have his entire 7-year, $49 million contract guaranteed. Seattle transition.
He had a poison pill. He had a poison pill in his contract.
Yeah, and Seattle transition tagged him, which doesn't give you the same guarantees as a franchise tag, so Seattle lost him for basically nothing. And then he came back. His Twitter handle is PoisonPill76,
yeah,
and he raised the 12th man flag. So, Zeb, what were your thoughts when you heard about this? Did you boo? Did you cheer? What did you do with this guy?
When I first heard about it, I kind of laughed it off. Haha. You know, I don't know if that's... You know, I don't know, disbelief, I guess. But then being in the stadium and seeing it actually happen, I was disgusted. I booed. No, thank you. Like, I get it. It's all business and all that stuff. But no, you're not a Seahawk anymore. You ruined that. So
yeah,
the fact that they would even bring him back to do that is it's flabbergasting. I don't know. I don't get it.
I definitely agree with you, and my only recourse about it was this current iteration of the Seahawks. They don't really hold grudges in the same way, so they were willing to extend a hand to him. There are definitely a lot of other guys that I would have rather seen, actually thousands and thousands of other former Seahawks or local Seattle people to raise the flag instead of Steve Hutchinson, because like the reasons you said, he's a traitor. He totally was disloyal to the Seahawks. Not saying that he has to be, but the manner in which he left was beyond terrible. You know, we've had people leave Seattle. There have been no hard feelings. A guy like Matt Hasselbeck is a perfect example of a guy who was not re-signed, but if brought back in any capacity, bringing it out as the 12th man flag, just being someone who is recognized as a great quarterback for the franchise, he would be cheered. He's beloved. He's a perfect example of a guy that could be brought back. I mean, they brought, I think, Trent Dilfer.
Right, but that's a completely, that's very apples to oranges.
Right, it is, I mean, but I'm saying, like, there's guys like that. I mean, they brought Trent Dilfer back, and Trent Dilfer didn't get anywhere close to that kind of booing. I mean, Hutchinson got a warm reception.
Players that left after Seattle didn't want them anymore, and it was like a kind of amicable split. With Steve Hutchinson, it's a very, very complicated situation. I mean, I don't know.
Let me ask you
when
this,
he
Ross.
got the tag, like you just mentioned, he didn't get the proper tag that you would have thought. That Holmgren at the time thought that he was going to be given, right? Holmgren left town and apparently came back and found Russell had not used the proper tag.
No, he found out at the combine. John Clayton told him, like, hey,
right,
heard you guys use the transition tag instead of the franchise, and Holmgren freaked out.
Yeah, and Holmgren's like, what? Right, so what? I mean, from Hutchinson's point of view, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, what from Steve Hutchinson's point of view, what do you think he was thinking then? Right?
I think Steve Hutchinson. He said he felt like he wasn't respected because they gave him the transition instead of the franchise.
Exactly. So what did he do when he felt disrespected by the Seattle team? He went and disrespected the Seattle organization.
No,
is he a
but
traitor? Is he a traitor, or was the Seattle Seahawks?
He originally claimed that he did not know about the poison pill, which I believe to be total bunk.
It doesn't matter, even if he knew about it. But again, after you feel like you just got FU'd by Seattle, wouldn't you, as especially you're a high testosterone 26, 27-year-old guy, and you just got disrespected. You know you're the best in the game, and that they put that tag on you. I mean, players hate the franchise tag because of what it does to earnings, but at the same time, they also know that it means you're considered by your team invaluable to lose.
I don't know. I know what you're saying, but I just don't see it on both sides because
I mean, let me put one small more comment in there. I mean, again, I'm presenting his side. I don't love the dude. I think the situation itself was so touchy that he should have been just on the list of people you never used to raise the flag. I mean, it's kind of obvious. No matter whether you can get more objective about it, it's how the fans feel about it, how you think the fans are going to react to it.
Oh, it was a total lukewarm reception. Totally lukewarm. Yeah. Did not get the fans excited at all.
I'm sort of willing to move on because I can sort of see the other side of it. I really do. It's been years, man. I can move on, even if he was a jerk at the time. But here's the thing. Like you pointed out, here's the one thing that means to me he should still be disqualified. Is he still using Poison Pill 76 as his damn Twitter handle? I mean, the one moment in your life that you need to kind of move over, get over, it's a very awkward thing that causes discord in the football world about you, and you're gonna make that your handle. Why not be a little bit more political about it, and then you can have Viking fans love you and Seahawks fans. If you actually said, "Hey man, I know," and he just kind of lets it play, people want to forgive. People like to give second chances normally.
Yeah, but
you're gonna use that as your Twitter handle.
People like to give second chances to people that are humble about it, that are apologetic. He is not apologetic about it. He doesn't have to be, but that plays in the fact that he is not someone that is welcome back. But from a fan's perspective, if he's not willing to admit that, hey, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have left the city in the way that I did, I wish it was better, that would open the opportunities for forgiveness, and it was just a bad decision by the organization. It was a really, really poor choice to raise the flag.
It really was for a playoff game.
Yeah. So
stupid. So
let's move along. We're gonna get to our first topic here, and we're gonna use this fire and use this passion. We're going to talk about the officiating. So, from a non-Seahawks perspective, there's a lot of talk about penalties. We've got the game with the Falcons next week. Lots of controversy penalty-wise. There was a couple questions about penalties in the Detroit-Seattle game. So, topic number one. This is for you as a fan. What kind of officiating do you want? Do you want to let them play, or do you want to call the flag? And I say that on the 4th and 1, where Seattle is trying to score a touchdown. They throw basically a fade pass to the corner. I can't see it very well, and I'm looking. I don't see the catch that Paul Richardson makes. I see a flag, and I start cheering because we got first down from the half-yard line, and we're going to be able to punch it in and go up 7-0. And then all of a sudden, this weird crowd noise comes up, and people are yelling and screaming. I can't tell what's going on. All of a sudden, there's a 6 on the scoreboard, and I'm like, wait, how did they score? He didn't catch the ball. He drew the flag. And there's the great picture of Pete Carroll's face looking totally shocked, and that's the face that I made. So, Ross, you got to watch the game. You saw it much probably better than I do because of the replay. But what do you want to see? Do you want to see flags get called, or do you want to let them play?
I want to split the difference. Cop-out answer. I mean, most of the time, especially pass interference in the playoffs, you can't because pass interference is so problematic to me. And that's the one that I think we all just debate. The holding calls, you want to mostly let them go unless it's just flagrant, and OPI and things like that. Pass interference, it's complicated for me because if you're beat and you just totally drag your guy down, you got to penalize that, right? At the same time, though, that's a huge thing where they, it's a spot foul where this, wherever the penalty happened, you're going to put it there. I've in the past kind of like thought whether I wanted it to be like a 10 or 15-yard penalty, and that doesn't work though. I don't know. PI is just always going to be a problem, and it's actually a bigger problem now. People, I think, were perceiving more errors in refereeing, but I think it's actually more to do with the quality of TVs and how many cameras are around. I mean, like, you talk about the refs needing to be more on the game, but they watch the game in real time. It's really hard. But basically, to answer I think I just wanted to let them mostly play on. And let's be honest, as Seahawks fans and with our style of defense, that benefits us. So there's that too. But let them play on. And the thing is also, like, for example, Atlanta fans all week have been talking about the PI on that wasn't, quote unquote, wasn't called on Richard Sherman last game. But then you could argue the only reason he did PI was because of the slap and the head slap that Julio Jones used on him early, at the line of scrimmage. And so if you're going to call that, you're also going to call that, and you can just go on forever. I mean, playoffs, man. Like, let them play football. Let's the best football team win.
Zeb, what do you think?
I agree. I like more of a hands-off approach by the refs. Anything flagrant, call it. Anything that if somebody busts off a big run and it's only because of a holding call, then call the holding. But defensive penalties drive me crazy. I hate that just about everything you do on defense, with the exception of an offsides, is an automatic first down. That drives me nuts. It's too advantageous because it's just a small little thing, a holding or a hands to the face, illegal contact, and it's 3rd and 22 and they get an automatic first down for that. Like, that's too much. So I like when they leave that stuff alone.
Once upon a time, a lot of the penalties had at different times had kind of two different levels to them. Like, there was like for a while there was inadvertent face mask and there was like legit face mask, and
right.
I kind of like him to bring that back, like hands to the face, where you're up in the guy's grill and you're using that for leverage and to make it so he can't respond properly. That should be as it is now, but you're getting off the line and your hand happens to drag across the guy's helmet. I mean, yeah, we want to protect players, so call up 5 yards and redo, but not even an automatic first down is what I'd call that.
Yeah, and then like the silly personal foul hit to the head of a quarterback when you barely touched him, like we know what happened to Earl in Miami a few years ago. Like,
yeah,
that's not worth 15 yards and a first down. Like, let the kids play football,
Yeah.
The more aggressive breaking of the rules, personal fouls, and unsportsmanlike conduct. I'm a fan of those because I don't like when guys lose their cool or basically try to cheat to gain an advantage. So I like when the refs are on top of that stuff. But for the most part, especially when it comes to things like pass interference, defensive holding, unless it's obvious and flagrant, let them play. Don't throw the flag just because you thought you saw something. Make sure you saw something before you throw the flag.
Yeah, I think what both of you guys are saying is fair, and I think most fans would say let them play, don't call a flag. I'm going to take a different approach and do a little bit of Ross here and be a little bit Team Sweden and say, between Team Switzerland and say, there's definitely a fine line, and I want them to call the flag, but I want them to call the flag correctly. That's what I want, and I know that's really hard. It's live, they're human. I accept the human element of the game. I know that that's a huge component of what makes a sport so entertaining, but I also think that that's something that they need to work on, and the NFL as a whole can't just let it slide. They can't let this multi-billion-dollar enterprise be bogged down by needless controversy. Perfect example, in that end zone play to Paul Richardson, he got massively interfered with trying to make that catch. In the same time, he totally got his hands on the defender's face mask. And, in a perfect world, that's a flag on both sides, offsetting penalties, replay down, so what? But on the next 2 plays that Paul Richardson got the ball, he got massively interfered with again, and they don't call it. So that's my issue with flags. Is there's so much inconsistency, and I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if full-time referees really makes that big of a difference because they're not playing.
I hate that idea.
Because they're not playing every day. What are you going to have them do? Like, there's a couple guys that I know can come to training, to go to training camp and help you out. But unless the team is going to hire like independent NFL refs to just hang out with the team all day, that's not good because you don't want them to get cozy and friendly with those guys. There's a reason why baseball rotates, an officiating crew so that they play 3 different spots in 3 different days. So there's not a perfect world, but that's what I'd want. I want to say if you're going to call a flag, be consistent with it. If you're going to call holding on this play, call holding on every play like that. If you're going to call pass interference because of this issue, then you're going to call pass interference every single time. Now I know that
I have a solution.
All right, what's your solution?
I have a solution, and it starts as it's the old time joke, but I have a way to make it work. Okay, it's the 5 guys in a bar, right? So you get 5 guys, but you want to make it people who have to any team. So you go to like before every NFL Sunday starts, you go to like a pub in London, right? And you set up like all the TVs, and you get 5 guys sitting at the counter of the bar. And then when there's a controversial play come up, you show the 5 guys the replay, and they come to the conclusion, and that's it. Like it's like the Doug Baldwin catch. Like, I mean, this is kind of the opposite of like the controversy usually with a catch. Is it a catch? Is it not a catch? And you'd say like, oh, he didn't really catch it because of how the rules are written, but it obviously was a catch. This time he caught it, but if you had 5 guys in a bar and that ridiculous catch he made where the ball like he's holding his hip and his thigh, whatever, you ask 5 guys in a bar in London who don't know anything about football, they do not that he didn't really catch it. No, he didn't catch it. I mean, like that's a sacrilege because that's a pro Seahawks thing. But what I'm saying is, that's how you want to call it. You just like 5 guys, common sense. Did he catch it? Did he not catch it? Like going all the way back to Megatron's original thing that started all the controversy, or Des Bryant's catch or non-catch against Green Bay last year. 5 guys in a bar, they make the call, and that's it. And then you move on.
I would.
And then the week after you move it to like Berlin. The week after you move it to Madrid. He's just got like 5 random guys in a bar somewhere in Madrid, and they're like, "He got it," and no, you didn't catch it, and like that's it. There you go.
I like a team. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, my issue with that, and this is why I think officiating is really hard, is because there's so many difference of opinions. There's someone out there that thinks that that's not a catch by Doug Baldwin. That's
why it's 5 guys.
But
no,
but do you just need 3 of the 5? Like I get what you're saying, and that's the thing.
I mean, like there are cases that are really really different. In case you can go, it has to be 3 out of 5. But in like when you're not worried about like what the letter of the law, when you're actually worried about like the spirit of the law and what should be a catch, most people I think agree. There's every once in a while, like maybe like once a year, there's a problem. But once a year, why are we worried about that? Like the Fail Mary, people are never going to agree on. If it's been this long, this amount of time, and people can't agree, they're never going to agree. And it's one of those things. Life isn't a lawsuit. It's not a law. Not everything's going to be black and white. All of life, there are things that reasonable people can disagree with the same exact information, right? And we have to just deal with that, accept it.
All right, Zeb,
that's part of being an adult.
Final thoughts from Zeb.
Well, just going on the idea of how to make it better, I think there should be like 3 officials at the game up in the stands watching monitors. So instead of a ref having to, the lead official having to go under the cover and check the replay, these 3 guys make the decision for him without having to do all that stuff.
That'd be good too.
And if a penalty's called and those guys see, without having to take a whole bunch of time looking at it, no, that wasn't really what you think it was, tell them, pick up the flag.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Make things like use the technology. Use the technology to make the game better.
Exactly.
And that's one thing that I have to give a lot of props to the NFL. They do that better than any sport in regards to acknowledging mistakes. The best sport, I think, there are other sports that I think do a much better job of it than the NFL, but for American sports, the NFL does it amongst the big sports. They're willing to integrate technology into the program. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's so much better than other sports. So,
but I kind of get why baseball doesn't want to do it, especially like on strikes and balls. Like, I mean, there's so many pitches thrown in a game and in the season. Like, unless you can prove to me that there's like actually a bias, you can kind of assume the margin of errors are hitting both teams equally over a season.
Right, and I don't even care about strikes and balls because that game's way too boring. I can't stand it anyway. But I agree with what you're saying. But baseball, but football as a whole, I think they do a really good job. And for as much as we gripe about the game and say penalties slow it down, I think they have made enough changes over the past several years to make it so that calls are done much better and that there is an opportunity to get a flag. Whereas in baseball, it took so much effort for a call to get overturned, and most of the time it just resulted in like someone from the team getting ejected, and that's not what you want. A coach shouldn't have to yell to try and get an opinion heard and just get thrown out immediately, and that's a big problem with baseball. All right, but let's move on. Let's talk about topic number 2, and this is going to bring us about playoff experience. So we've all been to the playoffs now. Zeb, he went to his first playoff game, so congratulations, Zeb.
Thanks.
What is the best way to experience the playoffs? Obviously you probably want to experience at home and at the stadium. But what do you think is the best? So, Zeb, you got to experience your first playoff game. You've been to enough games now, home, away, home, at the stadium now, playoffs, non-playoffs. What do you think is the best way to experience it?
Well, first off, let me say I don't know that it's fair to judge the playoff experience at CenturyLink off this one game alone, just because I know people's attitudes and people's feelings, including my own going into this game, probably aren't what most of the time it has been over the last 5 or 6 years for the Seahawks. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people just the passion wasn't there like it has been the past few seasons. At least that's been my experience. So, like this game versus say against the Panthers a couple years ago at CenturyLink, or against the 49ers in the championship game, probably not a night and day experience. You know what I mean?
Right. I think a lot of people just were taking it for granted they were going to win, so I don't think it felt like a playoff game.
Well, yeah, I think that happened, and then also I think my biggest problem is that I've kind of felt like I just don't have faith in this team this season.
Yeah.
I don't have that belief that we're gonna this is our year. So even with the win, I still left with a little bit of that uncertainty about what's gonna happen next.
Right.
But I will say that I think obviously live in person is probably the best way to experience playoff football. But I think almost equally as important is just watching it with good friends and good fans. It kind of doesn't matter. You can be watching on a little, like a little 17-inch black and white TV if that's all you have. But if you're with your best buds, and your best diehards, that you can have the best time of your life doing just that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, the best playoff experience is just to be with good friends, good fans, and they get that win. Just the feeling. It doesn't matter where you are or how you're seeing it. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. All right, Ross, what about you?
Oddly enough, on such a non-controversial topic, I kind of disagree with Zeb. No, but I agree. Like, we're talking playoffs, not because the regular season, I think I'm kind of divided up. But for playoff games, I want to be there. Definitely, I want to get to the game to the area before, to the stadium area, like 2 hours, 3 hours before. I like to, especially for the playoffs, I like to kind of soak it in, take a walk on the stadium area, gripe about the prices of parking, and see the fans all decked out and in the bars in the area. I love that. So that's great. And then you want to be with you want to be at the game with friends or relatives, or because especially these games, they're so memorable. If you're at the end, you're going to remember the NFC Championship game against San Francisco probably forever. Especially if you were there.
Yeah.
You're going to remember who you were jumping up and down and shouting and hugging. I'm not a hugger, but I was hugging people. I don't like to be touched by strangers, man. But I was hugging people. But if you can't make it to the game, here's why I slightly differ from them. if you can't make it to the game, if you're going to watch the game on TV, for me, the best way to watch it, whenever, whether it's a playoff game or a regular game, I don't really want to be around anybody. I don't like I don't want to have to talk when I'm watching the Seahawks game when it's on TV. I want to focus on what I'm seeing and then take it in and analyze, and I want to hear what the commentary says, and I want to get all the information there. And if I'm watching the game with people, I feel obligated to be social, or that's why I had some good friends in Tokyo who were big NFL fanatics before, and they used to want to go to the bars to watch the games, and they thought it was so lame, and I think they thought maybe I wasn't even a real football fan because I always said no. It's like, dude, I gotta watch games by myself. In the stadium, I love being with people, and I want to be like some of the people who are important to me because I want to share that memory and share that experience. But if I'm at home, leave me alone, man. Like, leave me alone. Like, key plays, I'll text people about, but that's about the limit to my interaction. Just I'll talk to you after the game. Leave me alone. I need my space. I make an exception for the Super Bowl. That's mostly if it's Seahawks and I want to gloat. So it hasn't always worked out.
I definitely agree with both of you guys, especially even though you're offering it from different vantage points. But I think the best experience for playoffs is always going to be a little bit personal. But I think for me, my personal experience is always going to be at the stadium because there's nothing like the energy of a playoff game. I know a lot of people weren't super excited about playing the Lions, and people reflected that in a lot of people trying to sell tickets, selling them for well below what you would have seen for a regular season game, even in some cases. But I think the idea of knowing that it's all on the line and seeing your team perform well, there's something always more memorable about a playoff game. And I can remember every playoff game that I've been to since I've been able to go to Seahawks games as a fan. My first playoff game that I went to was in 2004 when the Seahawks won the West 9-7, but had lost to the Rams twice already. And there in the south end zone, on 4th down, Matt Hasselbeck throws to Bobby Ingram. It's not a great throw. It's like off at the tip of his hands, and Seattle loses. I remember that game. I remember the vantage point. I remember all these things, and you can't replace that. I had the unfortunate experience of not being at the New Orleans-Seattle game with the Beastquake in Pete Carroll's first year. For whatever reason, I can't remember. I didn't go to that game. I chose not to buy playoff tickets, which is odd because I'd gone to every other game beforehand. But I didn't get playoff tickets, and I missed out on the Beastquake. So I watched it at home, jumping up and down in my house with my friends that would watch the game with me. So playoff, there's nothing like experiencing because, like you guys said, there's something about being able to see those particular plays, knowing where you are, knowing how you're able to see it happen. For this game in particular, I'm always going to remember that I didn't know that Paul Richardson scored a touchdown, and I stood there flat-footed for like a good minute trying to figure out, well, where did the score come from? Did someone get it off a deflection? And until I saw the replay, I didn't know. But that's something that I'm always going to be able to have, and I don't think you can beat that. It's not the same as saying like, oh yeah, I was sitting on my couch, and all of a sudden this happened. Maybe for a Super Bowl for sure, but for a playoff game, like especially in the earlier rounds, I think at the stadium is definitely the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, regular season, I think it's a bit different, but I can see it either way. But playoffs, man, you got to be there. You're making memories.
I just had some moments, some playoff moments that I will never forget because of where I was and who I was with while the amazing thing happened. Like being at a bar that was so packed, but I had a bunch of friends with me, not necessarily all Seahawks fans. But this was against the Cowboys back in, what was it, 06, the botch snap game?
Oh, right.
I wasn't at that game either. I remember now.
A whole bunch of friends around me, and not necessarily Seahawk fans, but they kind of find themselves rooting for the Seahawks with us as the game's getting intense. And then the botch snap happens, and the place erupts. Everybody cared, even though they didn't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And it was just such a perfect moment. Like, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah,
and that was just at a bar with friends, which I'm more usually watch the game alone. I want to focus. I don't want interruptions. But every once in a while, when it's a big game in a big situation, it just works out just right. But yeah, that's my favorite way for it to happen.
Yeah. All right. Let's final thoughts before we move on.
That was mine.
All right.
If you ever have a chance, I also recommend going to an away playoff. Obviously, tickets get really crazy expensive, but it's also really quite. I it depends on the team, but I find it quite interesting. I've gone to a couple. I went to the best one was I went to a playoff game in Green Bay. They lost that one, but
that was the game
good.
they had a 14-0 lead, and just like the snow just suffocated them, right?
When they got the 14, when they had a 14-point lead. I mean, most of Green Bay fans are super, super gracious and super, super nice. Like Seattle's like kind of a recent winning tradition, so I think sometimes we can be a bit belligerent as fans. But Green Bay's fans are mostly like kind of really, really comfortable in their skin. They've had a football team forever. That's what their town's about. And it's so gracious and so nice. Everyone was super, super nice. So I was totally taken aback. When they took the 14-point lead, a guy behind me to my left threatened to take my 12-man flag and put it someplace that wouldn't have been very comfortable. And then at halftime, his wife made him apologize, and I think it was easier for him to apologize because by that time we were falling apart and Seahawks went on to lose that game pretty badly.
That game,
after halftime, it was hard to watch. It was so snowy you couldn't see across the field.
Right.
So anything happening on the opposite side, you literally, if you were in the stands, you couldn't see it. Snowing was just incredible. But anyway, it was a good experience, and yeah, if you ever get the chance for that, I totally recommend it.
All right. We're going on to topic number 3, which is the Homer Corner. So Ross came up with this idea, so we're going to run with it. If given the opportunity, would you be a Seahawks player, Seahawks coach, or Seahawks general manager? What I'd like for everyone to do, Ross, I want you to hit it off first. But I want you to tell us what you would be, a player, coach, or a general manager. And then afterwards, for the positions that you did not select as your number 1, what position would you be, whether it had a player, or what coaching position would you be? So take it away.
At my point in my life right now, I'm going to give the boring answer. I think I'd want to be like the GM.
All right, well, assume you could be at any age possible.
Right. I mean, if I was a young man, who didn't want to be like the football player when they're a kid, right? When you're a kid, you're out on the playground throwing the ball around. You always see yourself as the football player. But overall, what suits my character now and how I am now, I think I'd really enjoy. I'd love to be like the GM. The buck stops with you. You make the big decisions. You don't get to deal with. It's probably something that's frustrating. I hadn't thought about this as a kid. You never think about this stuff as a kid, but like John Schneider, when he goes out and gets a talented player, and maybe he and Pete Carroll usually see things eye to eye, but it can't be 100%. So if you're a GM and you think you've put together the right team, but you see the coach is not using him quite right, or you get frustrated with a player because you got him to do a certain thing and he doesn't seem to be coming along in that as well as you thought he would, that'd be frustrating. But overall, just the guy to be able to pull the strings and watch the cap and put together the team. Let the guys get the most. Let other people get the most out of it. Let the other people execute on the field. But you're the one who really put that team together. That quiet satisfaction. I think I really, really, really enjoy that. I think it's gonna not be your guys' answer. It's kind of a boring answer, but I just kind of picture John Snyder mostly up in his office, kind of checking out the game through a window or through the binocs or on the TV, but just kind of quietly just being like, you know what, I did that. Hey, Pete Carroll, he called those plays and he got them in fighting shape, and Cam Chancellor just made that hit to save the game. But I'm the one who spotted or who chose the people to spot Cam Chancellor. I'm the one who got him in the 5th round, and I'm the one who although skipped on him in the first 2 rounds, I'm the one who finally pulled the trigger on Russell Wilson. I put that together.
John Snyder wanted to take him in the 2nd round.
Well, there you go. Somebody saved him some stock in the draft. But that must be an amazing feeling to know you put that together all by yourself in a sense.
All right. Well, if you were going to be a position player, or if you're going to I
was going to be a position player. Can I give 2 answers? One the fun answer, one the economics.
Sure.
As you know, I was when I was a kid, I was not svelte anymore, but I used to be pretty svelte as a kid. And when I was a kid, I watched oh, you guys don't remember this. There was this Mean Joe Green Coca-Cola classic commercial.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that one.
If you haven't seen it when it was played, you've probably seen it like on YouTube or whatever. But I wanted to be like a defensive lineman, and I was really skinny as a kid, so it wasn't ever going to happen. But I always thought that would be awesome. It's not a glory position, but that's just that. I think it's a good life lesson, just like having to run that motor hard for a few seconds every damn time that ball is snapped. I wanted to do that, and I would have do that if I had been born into a heavier body, or if I'd had the body now I had then. Or whatever. And if I was going to be a coach, defensive coordinator. I mean, to be honest, I like the NFL now. Obviously, I'm a huge fan, but I do miss the days where defense had more to do and weren't trying to fight back against offense with one hand tied behind their back. How to stop people and not be like a passive defense, to be like an active defense, making the offense kind of call plays based on what your defense is rather than like them doing what they want to do. Like that kind of stuff fascinates me. So I'd always want to be like a defensive coordinator. I'm the guy in the history of Madden who like focused 90% of my attention on the defense and was like, yeah, and then do something on the offense. Like I couldn't be bothered like with offensive play calling. It was like, yeah, but get the defense out there, get all the defensive guys.
Your goal is only score. Your only goal is like, I got to score real quick. I don't care if it's a touchdown or a field goal. I got to get the defense back out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm like, how many minutes can we be on the field and not give up a point, not give up more than a field goal?
You're the kind of guy that like roots to always like return a fumble or a touchdown or interception for a touchdown because that means the offense doesn't play. You just got to go play defense right away.
Right, you just skip over it. I mean, I like Russell Wilson. I mean, in real life, I like Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, and Rawls. That's interesting and fun for me. But I'm really, really more interested in how do you dictate to an offense what they can do when you get to impose your will on them. That's much more interesting to me because it's much more difficult.
All right, Zeb, what about you? Dream Seahawks job.
Well, I have to go back to... First of all, I want to say, Ross, I don't think the GM is a boring... That's not a boring answer. I think it's a great answer. I think it's an answer that takes the most thought. Because it's easy to say, oh, I want to be a running back, I want to be a quarterback. But to want to be the GM, that's badass. That takes some real thought. Me, all I ever wanted growing up was to be Steve Largent. So if I could choose anything, I'd want to be... the superstar number one wide receiver.
What's your number? What number are you going to rock?
80.
80?
Of course it's 80.
What happened? Okay, well, you're on the Seahawks, so you can't have 80.
After he was retired, you couldn't be 80.
So what's your backup number?
Like 18 or?
No, I'm definitely more of a 80s wide receiver. If I couldn't be 80, I wouldn't really care so much. I'd take 88, 87. Doesn't matter to me.
I'd go with 84. Somehow that's my backup.
84 is cool. 84 is a cool number.
That's
a lot
Joey
of cool
Galloway.
wide receivers have wore 84. Yeah.
I'd go 89 if I were wide receiver, but yeah.
88 looks almost like 80.
Yeah. Sam looks like an 89. I just picture Sam wearing 89.
Yeah. Doug Baldwin, Brian Blades. It's a good number.
It's got quite the pedigree.
I will say once Deion Sanders came around, I also warmed up to the idea of being a defensive back. But yeah, no, if I could choose anything I wanted, I would be a number one wide receiver without question.
You're not enough of a diva though, man. You got to be a diva to be number.
No, there's some wide receivers that aren't divas out there. You don't have to. It's not a requirement. Steve Largent's not a diva for sure.
Requirement.
It didn't used to be a requirement,
but
now it is.
Like a leg up on the job.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
All right. If you had to be a coach, though, what position would you be?
I would love to follow in the footsteps of my hero, Darrell Bevel, and be an offensive coordinator.
Would you go for it every fourth down like you were playing Madden?
No, of course not. No, I'm way more traditional.
I kind of think I would, and that's one more reason I couldn't be like the offensive coordinator. I'd be like, oh, it's 4th and 11, yeah, just go for it. No.
I've always loved the idea of drawing up plays and then, calling them situationally during the game and all that stuff. Like that's always been fascinating to me. So yeah, if I was a coach, that's what I'd want to do.
Cool. if you were a GM, because there's only one GM role, would you be the kind of guy that would build your team through free agency, or would you try and build through
the draft?
Through the draft. And are you going to have an offensive coach or a defensive minded coach?
That's tough. That's interesting. I guess you'd have to depend on the candidates that are out there at the time, right?
Well, you can get anyone. What's your style?
You've got the big bucks.
Yeah, you've got Paul Allen's pocketbook.
Paul Allen's just like, dude, you know what? I don't care. I'm about to die. Just spend all my money. Hurry.
I think just based on our experiences and our success, I like the defensive-minded head coach, and then then you got to just hire somebody badass to run the offense for you.
Yeah,
and call your plays. So maybe like we got let me see, who would I pick? If I could get like Chuck Knoll as my head coach, and then like freaking Mike Martz is my offensive coordinator.
It's a good offensive coordinator.
There used to be a lot more coaches thinking about it. Zeb's got me thinking, like, before the NFL was so sterilized, everything, there used to be so many coaches with a much stronger personality, it seems to me. Like
yeah.
Well, I think the thing is that you see now is all these head coaches, they're not getting recycled anymore. There are only a few head coaches that get recycled again. Most recently, it's Rex Ryan's and the Chip Kellys, Jack Del Rio to a lesser degree. There's not a lot of coaches that are getting, like, they get their chance and then they're done. What happens now is they get their chance to be a head coach, they don't succeed, and they just become a really strong coordinator, offensive or defensive. That's what I think you're seeing a lot of now.
Personality.
Yeah.
I think there's a definite lack of patience these days. I'd say that like that's kind of true of like culture and society as a large as a whole, but in particular, I just think you see it in football. Like every player he's a boomer bust after 2 years, and you give coaches one season, and it's like, you know what? Some of these programs take a few years to infuse.
Yeah, but that's also bad. That's bad
technology
ownership.
Has made society move so fast now.
I also think probably 4 or 5 of the best available head coaches are doing TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're looking at,
and again, that's part of society where the money is.
If you're looking at Dungy, Mariucci, I think even Herm Edwards does TV, right?
Yeah.
What's his name? Gruden.
Bill Cowher. Like, these guys are all TV personalities, and they could probably land they could be the highest paying coach tomorrow if they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, well, if I had to if I had to pick a Seahawks place to be, I was originally going to go with GM, but then I kind of thought about it a little bit more, and I realized that I'm so bad at that kind of organizational stuff. I wouldn't be really good at it. So I've kind of fallen into a default, and I'm actually going to say I'd be an offensive coordinator. And the reason why I pick offensive coordinator is because I like the concept of offense. Defense is definitely much more satisfying. I think there's something, like you were saying, Ross, about the draw of being able to have a really fierce, really intimidating defense. But what I look at, and this is, I think, having become a really big Seahawks fan under the Mike Holmgren era, is there is something about offensives that there's a certain aspect that they can be almost so efficient, so precise, that it makes it almost impossible to stop. A longtime poster, Kiwi Hawk, he said in 2005 the Seahawks were like what are those big ice masses? They're not. I can't remember the word.
Glacier?
A glacier. Glaciers move very slowly. You know where they're coming from, but you cannot stop them unless we're talking about climate change. But in 2005, it was the Seahawks offense with Matt Hasselbeck and Sean Alexander was this precision offense that could not be stopped, and until the Super Bowl, it couldn't be. And I like the idea. I like the concept of being able to devise. Okay, how do I create an opening? You know what? You're my fastest, tallest guy. you're the obvious person who's going to get a lot of balls, but on this play, I'm going to make you run a streak route, and I'm going to have two guys run underneath you, and then they're going to do a pick play, and then they're going to open up this really easy, crossing route. I'm going to be able to pick up X number of yards. I like that. I like that. But
he's got too much.
You say I'm being cute, but the idea is that's not something that I'm doing like all the time. But I like that idea. I like trying to devise that availability. And we're not talking about like, oh, you know what? They'll never expect me to throw to the fullback. It's not stuff like that. It's not like, oh, I'm going to throw on the 1 yard line. It's the idea of how do I put my players in the best position for them to win and succeed. And no matter how good your defense is, there are certain things that an offense can do that are unstoppable. You can't stop a perfect pass. The play that Russell Wilson had on the play action to Doug Baldwin down the sidelines for that 32 yards, that was a perfectly executed play. There was no way, even if that defender was running step for step with Doug Baldwin, that he would have been able to do anything with it unless he, tackled Doug Baldwin before he got to the ball. So that's what I think I would like to do. I'd love to study more of that. I think that's something that I personally am more interested in now. Because, we talk about and we complain about the offensive so much. And, it's something that I really think is cool. On a player side, I'm not the biggest guy. I'm more round than I am tall. So if I had the opportunity to be a position player, I would pick a punter because I think you could have the longest career. And I think that, when Ross and I go to training camp, we see John Ryan and Stephen Hauschka, off on their own field by themselves, kind of just standing around and be like, I could do that. That'd be fun. I'd like to just hang out with the other kicker and, not have to worry about it.
You could play any position on the Seahawks. You'd pick punter.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying that I'm growing taller, but yeah, I think punting would be awesome.
Guys, I'm going to step away for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
All right. If I were a GM, I would definitely follow a lot what you guys would said. I definitely would have picked a more defensive-minded head coach, because I think there's a lot more really good defensive minds out there, and you can survive with a really strong offensive coordinator. That's where I would be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, good. We'll look at it from the other side. When we had Holmgren, who was obviously an offensive-minded coach, we were fairly successful, but there was always that uncertainty about the defense.
Yeah. They went through so many defensive coordinators.
At times, they were very opportunistic, but they were rarely ever considered really good.
Yeah.
Whether it was John Marshall or
Ray Rhodes.
Rhodes. I don't remember what other defensive coordinators did we have under Holmgren. I don't even remember at this point.
There's someone that came after Rhodes. I can't for the life of remember, but none of those guys were young. Even all of the guys that Holmgren really coached up and became coaches in their own right, they were all on the offensive side.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think Ray Rhodes and John Marshall were probably good defensive coordinators, but the fact that that's basically they were the top when it came to the defense, it suffered.
Yeah.
Where the offense went all the way up to the head coach, and I think because of that it thrived.
Yeah.
Those offenses, man. That 2005 team, what a well-oiled machine that was, huh?
Yeah, you had 1 year wonder Joe Juravicius had 9 touchdowns. That guy was amazing.
I loved watching Hasselbeck play, man. He was so much fun when he was on.
Yeah, it's interesting to go back and look at that team versus the Seahawks team because they're just so different. They're so night and day, especially at the focus at the offensive and the defensive side. That would be a really fun matchup if you could get a time machine and get the 2005 Seahawks versus the 2013 Seahawks to see what would happen. I'd probably lean towards the 2013 Seahawks winning, but I'd hate to doubt what that 2005 Seahawks could do with that that amazing offensive line,
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's press along. Let's go to topic number 4. We got Ross back, so perfect timing. So topic number 4. This is more pertaining to the Seahawks specifically, but Seattle's lost a lot of coaches, especially on the defensive side. is this a good thing for the Seahawks? And this is about not just what that means to replace that coach, but what that does to like the culture. What does that do for the people that they have to bring up and the people that they have to get replaced? Zeb, what are your thoughts? So, in the past, Seattle has lost Gus Bradley, Dan Quinn, Chris Richard has gotten interviewed. He didn't get the Bills position because they already filled that with someone else. Ken Norton Jr. was our linebacker coach. He's currently defensive coordinator down in Oakland. But there's definitely been, opportunities where Seattle's lost their coaches that have had a huge impact on the team. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's great from the aspect of the culture. Pete Carroll breeding coaches. When this is all said and done, 10 or 20 years from now, and you look at Pete Carroll's coaching tree, you want it to be impressive and something you look back on, and so I think it's cool, and it probably makes these younger coaches feel like they have an opportunity to step up and show what they can do, and they'll probably it'll encourage them to give it their all or inspire them to be greater than maybe they think they can be. But when it comes to the team, to the Seahawks, to the players and the fans, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's not awesome. Like, oh, great. Oh, Gus Bradley, for what he was a pretty good defensive coordinator. And there was a bit of uncertainty there when he left and we brought in Dan Quinn. But that uncertainty was quickly erased, and Dan Quinn ended up being probably an upgrade. But that lasted, 2 seasons?
Yep.
And then
2 Super Bowls.
Yeah. 2 of the greatest defenses to ever step foot on the field. And, then obviously he gets hired away, and, things have been okay under Chris Richard, and I think it's awesome that a guy as young as him was given the opportunity, and he's done some pretty good things. But at the same time, it hasn't been the same under him as it was under Quinn or even probably Bradley. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to happen. When it happens, it means things are good, right? Like, the fact that it's happening means that your team has done well, or things are going pretty good for you. But I'm sure the guys don't like having to switch coordinators all the time.
Yeah.
I think stability and consistency is probably preferred. So I'm going to go with bad thing. Bad thing overall.
Ross, what about you? Do you like the fact that the Seahawks coaches can get so much attention?
I guess I look at it this way. I don't really want to think of it in terms of it's a good thing or a bad thing, because everything in life is really, it's a challenge. And it's what you make of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some scary things to it. Like when you lose Dan Quinn, and I think Dan Quinn losing him was a particularly big challenge, because you could see that probably because of his personality. I mean, I think Gus Bradley was just as good at DC, and I think Chris Richard actually is. It's just that there's something, anyway, there's other issues. But players seem to have some attachment, in particular to Dan Quinn, So it's a challenge, of course, when people leave. It's not, you can't just go with what you have anymore. But it also makes you think that your head coach has to have one more skill in his skill set. He has to be able to not just coach up players, but he has to be able to be the guy who's choosing his coordinators correctly. And he has to be able to be not just a good teacher himself, he has to choose people who are good teachers. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you can teach it, right? And so, but by now, at this point, I'm fairly well convinced that that Pete Carroll is that. He has his strong philosophy. He talks about it before. He didn't have his philosophy set pat when he was with the Jets or the Patriots, and he's developed it when he was at USC. And he's got his philosophy, and people buy in. And we focus on the players, but I think his coaches buy in, because you can see how the coaches change how they coached. Tom Cable's talked about it, how he is a much better coach because now he has worked with Pete Carroll. And I think because of that, I think Tom Cable eventually will get another shot at a head coaching job, and I think he'll do it well, much better than he handled it the first time. I guarantee you that Tom Cable's never going to punch another guy again. No, really. I mean, it sounds stupid to say it that way, but you know what I mean? Like, I think Pete Carroll has that effect. He's taught that this isn't old school football anymore. It's 2017, and he's got his system, and he believes in it, and it's proven to be effective. And he teaches it to his players, and he teaches it to his coaches, and they mostly come onto it. And so now again, it's a challenge. You never know what's going to happen, and you have to hope that the next guy adds in the wrinkles that are just as good. But I now have faith that Pete Carroll has the talent to choose his coordinators correctly. He knows who's going to choose. And when the time comes for Pete Carroll to be gone, I think we're in a good position where the next head coach will be out of his system and will keep it going and keep it effective. Because it's not just about the play calling or the defensive theory. It's the mindset and the overall, the philosophy of football that Pete Carroll brings in.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I look at it this way. What it means is the team is successful. And as much as that hurts the team's future success, I think it's a good thing because coordinators, coaches don't get taken from bad teams. It's, if Jeff Fisher gets another job, it's inviting him to be the all-time losingest coach by himself. That's not likely to happen. And, you have to play a really long time, coach a really long time to be in that conversation. But I think what it really means is it means that the Seahawks have built a system with a head coach that allows them not only their players to grow, but the coaches to grow. And like you were saying, Ross, it's kind of a culture thing. You have to allow that so that people really buy in. If you know that you have unconditional support by the person who is really your boss, you're always going to try harder. And that means you're always going to get the best. You see that with Pete Carroll. And my confidence is that even if we lose Darrell Bevell, as much of a hot topic he is for us as fans, or Tom Cable, or Chris Richard, Pete Carroll is a smart enough guy that he has people behind the scenes. Lofa Tatupu, everyone assumes is going to be another guy that's going to get groomed to be another coach. Pete Carroll has so many ties to players, not only in the professional world, but also people that were at USC, that he knows he could probably tap them for opportunities. Start out as a strength coach. We're going to build you up. You're going to get into the system. You're going to learn from these really strong position coaches. You're going to learn from these really strong coordinators, and you're going to get that opportunity. And I think that's what is good. And so far we haven't seen that fail. Pete Carroll has been here for 7 years. We've lost a lot of coaches, and we still see success because Pete Carroll is here. He's got a philosophy. He sticks to it, and his coaches stick to it, and they see success. And I think that's always going to be a good thing for our team as a whole.
Yeah, that's good summer.
Absolutely.
All right. So just a really quick thing. I remembered one of our other defensive people. He wasn't a defensive coordinator ever, but Jim Mora was our defensive backs coach, I think, for 3 years before he got promoted to...
was it 3 years?
Yeah, and the reason why I know it's 3 years, I think, is because our defense in the secondary got worse each year. So that's one of the things I remember about Jim Mora before he took over that I was really, really concerned about.
For some reason, I remember him coming on for that last season and sneakily just being elected head coach. But I probably am remembering it wrong.
Yeah, he was.
You're right.
He was. I'm sorry. He was only for 2 years, from 2007 to 2008. He was assistant head coach and defensive backs coach.
2 seasons, yeah. That makes sense.
It's still 2 seasons too long. That guy was the worst.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Looking at the timing and the age of stuff, Sammy, you and I talked about this, I think, at training camp. Do you reckon Lofa Tatupu is going to be the next head coach?
I think if we're going to look at anyone on the staff, I would definitely put Chris Richard as the best opportunity to become a head coach.
Right, but looking at the timing, I don't think that's going to work because I think
the timing of when Pete Carroll actually steps down, I think it has to lay out where if Chris Richard doesn't get the San Francisco job this offseason, I don't. It kind of would have to work out, but it really depends. If we're talking 3+ years away, then yeah, Lofa Tatupu, I could see him sliding in. He gets, he promoted to off defensive coordinator, and he then takes over as head coach. I could see that happening.
I kind of think I think what happens is next year, Chris Richard gets a job somewhere. And then Lofa becomes the DC, and then 2 years after that, Pete Carroll kind of says, he rides off into the sunset, and Lofa goes to head coach. I kind of see that working out.
So we're talking 3 years out?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I could see that. I could see that, and, you know, Pete seems like the kind of guy that would put kind of a plan in place, and, you know, it's interesting now because Tom Cable is the assistant head coach. But, yeah, I could see that definitely.
I think Tom Cable will get a head coaching job somewhere, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's interviewing with San Francisco reportedly, so.
Right. And he's talked about how much he's learned as a coach and as, you know, under Pete Carroll. So.
Yeah.
Which I really respect, because that guy came in as with the image of a hothead, right? I mean, he has more than a few blow-ups in where he's been before, and he was like, you know, he was the old school kind of coach. He had a really good thing he wanted to teach, and he was good at teaching that. But the rest of his teaching skill was kind of old school, and it was like, you know, you yell and scream with these guys, and that doesn't work. These guys are multimillionaires, and it's not, you know, again, it's not 1975 anymore. It's 2017. It's much more effective to build these players up, and works. Yeah. That people respond to that better these days, I think.
Yeah.
I think he'll be much better his second time around as a head coach.
All right. Yep. Agreed.
16 degrees down here, by the way, right now.
That's way too cold.
It's 16 degrees and we have a foot of snow on the ground. I'm not going nowhere.
Well, why do you live in Alaska?
You know, seemed like the right choice.
Yeah, he just loves those seals. All right, let's move on to topic number 5. So we were talking about the divisional round, as we stated earlier. 5th consecutive year that the Seahawks have made it to the divisional round, and we're facing the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons, number 1 offense, number 25 defense. So if you talk to a lot of Seahawks fans, they'll say that this is a rematch of the 2012 playoffs, and if you talk to Atlanta fans, they'll talk about a Week 6 rematch. So Ross, we're gonna let you start this off. What are you looking forward to in this game, and what are your thoughts heading into this Saturday game coming up?
This is a challenge. They got 2 legit running backs. They've got a legit quarterback. They've got at least 2, maybe 3 legit wide receivers. I mean, they're high octane offense, aren't they? But defense, not so much. And Trufant's out, yeah. And
he is.
Although I like their safety though. They've got what's his name, Keanu Neal or something like that.
Yeah, he's like he's a big Cam Chancellor fan.
He's their Cam. He feels. I mean, Dan Quinn got out to be his Cam Chancellor, and so I like him. I think in a couple of years he's going to be a star. I think he's going to be like a household name. But other than that, their defense really doesn't scare me at all. And this is the playoffs. If we can do what we did last week, I think we're okay. You shorten the game. Don't give Matt Ryan 12 or 13 possessions of the ball. Give him 9 or 8 possessions to work with. All right, so we need to be able to run the ball and run the clock. If they get the ball 8 or 9 times and they're able to score 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals off those, that's 20 points. So, you know, that's what you're aiming for. We have to score 21 or higher. And I think that's doable. I mean, they're really, really good, but this is the playoffs. We're going to ramp up. We're missing Earl Thomas, but we have Cam Chancellor back compared to when we played him the first time. We have Frank Clark back. ProSize looks like he was a full participant in practice today. Today. I think, you know, people are talking about how great their offense is. Their offense is clicking. Our offense can almost match them. I don't think I'm being too delusional there. We have it up to this point, totally admittedly. But again, playoffs, man. What happened in Week 6, what happened in 2012 doesn't matter anymore. It's a new game. And play calling will be different. Like, you know, last week I thought like our running game was going to take off because of the threat of Russell Wilson. He never actually took off. We did run read option, and some of that actually showed up in Thomas Rawls' runnings. If you go back and watch it, there were a couple times their defensive end just barely had to hesitate because he thought Russell Wilson might keep it. They'd obviously been told, hey, he's got the brace off. He might run now. Be on the lookout. And that opened up some little things. And this time as well, I think it's going to be the opposite way. They're going to overreact to the fact that every single time last week we gave it to Thomas Rawls, so they're not going to respect the read option. So Russell Wilson's going to take off. And once you have to worry about that, now it's 11 on 11. Usually offense against defense is actually defense has 11 players and offense only has 10 because the quarterback isn't really a threat. But when we play our best offense, Russell Wilson is, and it really just changes the equation. And I think we're pretty potential to be explosive anyway. I think we're going to win. I'm way more optimistic than I was 2 weeks ago.
Well, I think that's actually some pretty good insight overall, and I like your attitude.
But you're afraid.
Well, I'm uncertain. Because, they haven't really given me reason to not be uncertain. But I do like the matchup, honestly, because I think when our defense is playing up to its capabilities, no offense scares me. It's tough without Earl, but even without him, we've looked really good on defense against some pretty good offenses, with a couple of exceptions. So, I think that we have the capability to stop them, or at least contain them. And then it's going to depend on which Seahawks offense shows up. And I have to think that during the playoffs, we're going to see the best of our offense. I think Russell is... What's that?
Such as it is.
Yeah. No, but I think they took a really big step last weekend against the Lions. And if they can build off that momentum, and I think these guys are feeling confident. I think they're feeling good about themselves. They're liking the direction they're going. The only guy that really scares me on Falcons defense is Beasley. Hopefully they have a plan to minimize his impact on the game. Keep him as far away from Russell as possible, because he's going to be trying to eat his face. So yeah, I think we have a really good shot to go into Atlanta and win this game. Atlanta is they're not a tough football team. They're not a tough football town. They don't scare me. They can get hot and they can do some really good things on offense, but I think we have the dogs to stop them and pull off a win.
I'm worried about this game, and I'm not worried about what's going to happen. I'm worried that I'm really confident, and usually I don't get super confident about the Seahawks and how they're going to play, because usually I get bitten in the ass when I do that. But this game in particular, I look at the Falcons, and I know that they have this great high-flying offense. I know they're going to play on turf, which is going to make it, it's going to be a lot of speed on action. But I look at that defense, and I'm just not impressed. I know they played well against the last 4 weeks of the season, but that doesn't mean crap. I mean, there's a reason why Matt Ryan is 1-4 in the playoffs. Yes, he has beaten Seattle, but that was 4 years ago. Russell Wilson's won 8 playoff games. That's ridiculous. 8 playoff games. This is only his 5th year in the league. He has more playoff games than the Cardinals in their history. That's how crazy that is. So if I'm going to trust anything, I'm going to trust Seattle with its experience, with its coaches. Yeah, Dan Quinn has been there in the playoffs, but he's only been there with Seattle. He's not doing it with his defense. He's doing it with Kyle Shanahan's offense. And credit Kyle Shanahan in doing a really good job with Matt Ryan, who probably is going to win the MVP this year. But at the same time, if Seahawks can run 75% as well as they did against Detroit, is their defense going to hold up? They've been averaging 5.5 yards per carry defensively. So running, basically, it's 5.5 yards every time someone runs the ball against you. That's terrible. That means every 2 times they're running on average, they're getting more than a first down. As a defense, that's huge. And I don't know if I'm a Falcons fan, if I still believe that having the best offense is enough if my defense is so terrible. This is the playoffs.
Well, usually in the playoffs, that's not true, right?
Yeah, in the playoffs, you can't get by just by having a great offense. You have to be more balanced. So I'm overly confident. I know I probably shouldn't be. It's going to come out in my prediction later in the cast, but I'm kind of worried because normally I don't get this high. Like I was confident that we were going to win against Detroit, but I knew that there was a chance that we could screw it up if we couldn't run. But this game, there's nothing about the Falcons that scare me. You know, there's an opportunity about Seattle can lose for sure. But if Julio Jones is shut down by Richard Sherman because Richard Sherman kept him to 40 yards when he was matched up, one-on-one, that's a benefit to us. You know, if Deshaun Shedd plays as well as he did against a pretty good passing offense in Golden Tate, Marvin Jones Jr., and Anquan Bolden, I like our chances. Yeah, Detroit's not as good as Atlanta when it comes to their offense, but that's still a really strong offense, and I really like how Seattle can match up. It is going to be a big challenge without Earl Thomas, but I'm way overconfident that Seattle's going to win this game.
Well, I like your attitude.
I know. It worries me that I'm so confident about it, but because I have friends, they know that we do this podcast, and they'll ask me my football opinion, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel really good, and I don't. I have obviously I have a lot of reasons why I feel that way, but everyone else seems really skeptical, really, really hesitant to really say oh yeah, for sure, this is a really great matchup. You talk to anyone out there, and they're saying, Seattle has anywhere from a 35 to 45, maybe even higher percent chance to win. For a road team against the number 2 team in the conference, that seems like really, really strong odds.
Yeah, no, you're right. But for me, because I'm not very confident in this team right now. 35 to 45% feels pretty good, but I think that's based on the fact that nobody has any faith in the Falcons.
Yeah.
To do well in the playoffs.
And Vegas doesn't have faith in the Falcons.
Nope.
And I'm not saying that Vegas is the greatest indicator, but that means that there are a lot of people willing to put money on this game.
Well, casinos make a lot of money, so they tend to know what they're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't know, Zeb, you keep saying you don't have a lot of comments. Did last week's game help you out at all? It didn't boost your confidence a lot?
It didn't. I mean, it like we said at the beginning, it was a relief to get that good strong win, and it made me feel better. It makes me feel a little bit better going in. But I still just, this season's been so inconsistent. There hasn't been one game going in where
Zeb, I bet if you saw that game, the game that Seattle played last week, if you saw that game in San Francisco, you'd be more confident, I think. No, and I totally get what you're saying, because I think it's totally fair. This team has been so up and down, you don't know what you're going to get, but at the same time, you don't also know if you're going to get that really strong team that won in New England, that really strong team that just ran over Detroit like it was nothing. They ran 8 offensive running plays in a row, and they got positive yards all 8 plays.
It was beautiful. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope, and I hope and I believe that they can build off of that momentum.
Yeah.
I really do. I really am optimistic, and I do believe that they can go into Atlanta and get a victory. I believe that we will win. I do believe it, but I still have reservations. I'm not going to go overboard with confidence, and it's been that kind of season, man. I guess this probably leads us into our next topic pretty good if you want to.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So this is topic number 6. So each year, how do you define a successful season? Does it evolve throughout the year, or does it start and end with one goal in mind? So we're going to kick this off, and Zeb, go ahead, kick us off.
Well, I love this topic. I love this idea. I love thinking about this type of stuff. I think as a Seahawks fan, there was a point where making the playoffs made it a successful season. But I think since about 03-04, the ultimate goal has to be getting that title. And I think anything short of that, I guess getting to the Super Bowl, could be considered a successful season. But anything short of that just isn't. And I think the only way that would change during the season, like I don't think this season's been bad enough for us to go, well, we made it this far. Let's consider that a success. If we don't run the table now, I will feel like we had a disappointing season. I mean, it's one thing if you start 0-6, or do what the Packers did. Or they were 4-6, right?
4-6, and they've won 7 straight.
Yeah, like those guys could go to the championship game and lose, and kind of probably feel like, man, well, considering how we started, that's a pretty successful season. For us right now, I don't know. To me, under Pete Carroll with this defense, with these guys, it's all or nothing. It's Super Bowl or bust.
Yeah. Ross, what about you? What do you think?
It's a really hard question for me, actually. I struggle with this. You know, do you want to measure it by outside measurables? Do you want to measure it against yourself? It's a really hard question for me, unexpectedly. Do you want to measure it against what you expect at the beginning of the season? I don't know. I think you want to, for me, it comes down to, you look at your roster and you look at how good the team is, and you set your expectations, and then did you meet them? Did you exceed them? Did you not get there? And I always set my expectations a little higher than maybe I should. I figure if you aim high and you come up a little short, you're still well up the ladder. So the answer, I suppose, is it kind of, if you don't, I mean, obviously a Super Bowl is a successful season. Getting there, winning it, whatever. So is anything short of that, is that still a success? Well, it's hard because it's, like I said, are you playing against yourself or are you playing against the other team? Because you know what, the other team actually gets paid to play that game too, don't they? As soon as you can play your best game, and you can have you've called the right defenses and called the right offenses, but you can still lose because again, the other team's being paid too. They've put together their best team as well. And just because you didn't win it all doesn't necessarily mean you weren't successful in what you wanted to do. I don't know. The hard-ass answers, for like Zeb said, since 2004 especially on, man, like we need to be in the Super Bowl. And anything short of that, if I want to be the hard-nosed person, is a failure. Maybe not a devastating failure, but it wasn't a success because your goal was to win the Super Bowl and you didn't make it. So literally it was a failure. But again, if you get to the NFC Championship game and you lose because Green Bay or Dallas just played a great game and their players elevated themselves, and you did too, but you just came up a little short, it's maybe not a success, but I'm not going to really call it like a failure. So again, I'm riding the fence and not giving any clear answers because that's what I do apparently. This podcast is making me realize that's my thing. I need to go into politics apparently. But you know what I mean? I mean, like, you have that kind of simplistic, hardcore answer. Super Bowl or bust. But really, if we lost to Green Bay 27-24 and they scored a field goal in the last 30 seconds, and we were down, whoever we were down, I can't make excuses, but I'm not gonna cry as much as I could.
Yeah, but it would be hard. It would be hard to call that a failure.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
but again, if you say your goal, I mean, but being literal, if you're gonna go old school like Tom Cable used to be. If you did say your goal was to win the Super Bowl, by literal fact, you failed. You did not win that. But you have to also remember, like 31 teams failed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, the hard part, I think it's how you go out. Did you go out and play your best? Did you execute? Then you had a successful season. And you know what? Unfortunately, sometimes other teams execute a little bit better, or the ball happens to bounce a different way, or whatever.
Yeah.
I think you got to. That's why I always think. I run my own business. I have employees, and I always tell them, don't measure yourself externally. Measure yourself internally. Did you do your best today? Did you prepare properly? If you prepared properly, but things didn't go your way, you still did it right. You didn't get the contract, fine. There will be other contracts to win. But when you get home tonight and you brush your teeth and you look at yourself in the mirror, can you look yourself in the eyes and say, hey, man, I gave it my best shot today? And if you did, then you had a successful day. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. I think this is, I'm glad that we're having the discussion because I think what a lot of it comes to is our expectations and what we put onto the team, they manifest itself. And a lot of it's going to come out to were your expectations really high at the beginning of the year, or were they really low? So we did our projections, and we were all put the team around an 11 to 12 win season, and this is with all the question marks around the offensive line. They ended up winning 10 games. They won the 11th game through the playoffs. The way that I look at it, and this is I know from me, I look at where the Seahawks are, and I kind of look at where the NFL as a whole. I kind of blanket say, if the Seahawks make the playoffs and they don't have to win a game, but they're competitive in that first playoff game, that to me is a success. And the reason why I say that, it's not because I want to set expectations low. What it is I don't want to be the Browns. I don't want to be the 49ers. I don't want to be looking for high draft picks and hope that all of a sudden we can escape from this level of suckitude, you know? There is a certain aspect where I don't want to be complacent with making the playoffs where I'm like the Bengals. You know, the Bengals have not won a single playoff game in Marvin Lewis's career. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but Andy Dalton, Carson Palmer, those guys have not won a playoff game at any point when they're in Cincinnati, right?
Right.
So making the playoffs is never enough. I don't think that's... I don't want to ever get to that point where I think, oh, well, you know, I'm just happy to be in the playoffs. I want us to be in the playoffs and I want us to be competitive. And so far, we've seen that every single year. We've always been competitive. I think last year was pretty much like a down year because we were kind of out of it and we came back within one possession. But that was a pretty rough way to go out. We haven't seen that this year yet, and hopefully we won't. But I don't want to ever become a point in my fanhood of this team where I have to put expectations so high, and if they don't meet them, then I have to call the season a failure. Because if I enjoy myself, if I have fun, if there's things that I can highlight from this year, then that's going to be a success. And I fully agree with what you guys have to say, because this is kind of a very personal way of looking at it. I think you have to figure out what it is that you want as a fan and then use that as kind of the barometer. And if you can't, then you're projecting it off of either very lofty goals that maybe other people project out there, or you're setting them really low so that way you can't get disappointed.
Yeah.
And you know, the reason why I asked, does it evolve throughout the year, is because that's something that I definitely factored into what I considered to be a successful year. You know, it's really easy to forget that we had Cam Chancellor missing 4 games. We had Earl Thomas miss the last quarter of the year. We had Russell Wilson pretty much injured for 80 to 70% of this year. We didn't have a running game of any consistency throughout the year. We lost our best return guy. We lost a guy that was a very dynamic receiver in Lockett. We lost our, you know, heart of that defense in Earl Thomas. And I think I have to consider that and say, you know what, in spite of all these injuries, in spite of all these things happening, they still went out and won 10 games, won the division, won a home playoff game.
Yeah, and here we sit. Despite all that, here we sit.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, we got a tie game even.
6-6 tie, the most bullshit tie of all time.
Yeah.
The only way
Baseball game.
that tie could have been worse if it was like a 2-2 tie, like we both got safeties, you know?
Well, at least you got safeties then.
Yeah.
A couple of field goals.
All right, final thoughts about successful seasons and what you guys think about it.
I have to say that despite my initial comments on it, I feel like maybe last year was the only real failure under Pete Carroll, because the first year, obviously, rough, new staff, you don't expect to kind of go anywhere. You got an aging Hasselbeck playing, and then boom, you sneak into the playoffs at 7-9, and then you have the beast quake, and that's from our perspective, from our standpoint, that has to be a success no matter how you look at it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the season after that, with 4,000 transactions and different players, and who knows who's playing what, and we got Tavares Jackson playing quarterback, and even then, second to last game of the year, where there's a possibility that we can beat the 49ers, and then we can maybe sneak into the playoffs. And in that kind of a season, that doesn't feel like a failure to me.
Yeah.
his team played their heart out despite all of the shit they had to go through and the odds against them and all that stuff. So yeah, I think for the most part under Pete Carroll, this team has just been successful. Whether we made it to the Super Bowl or won the Super Bowl, last year was kind of the one year where it felt like we crapped out.
Yeah.
Didn't live up to our potential. So
I slightly not disagree, but the beast mode year, my characterization of it's slightly different because we beat the Saints, we moved on, we played Chicago, and I thought
we had a chance to win in Chicago.
NFC wasn't strong.
We had a chance to win in Chicago that game. So disappointing.
That was the thing. That was the year the NFC wasn't strong, and if we beat Chicago, the next game would have been in Seattle. All right.
Yeah.
And Chicago wasn't that good. They were not that good. Seattle was a better team, but they came out flat. It was almost like a home win kind of thing.
It was super cold, snow.
They had a weird issue. Like they talked about that. John Carlson was like going to be like their big target. He ended up like falling down in the sidelines after a tackle. And the way that they did it at Soldier Field is they have the field heated so there's no ice, but like a yard outside of the out of bounds area, the sidelines, it's not heated anymore. So he landed basically on concrete because the ice was so hard that he was out of the game. So that affected them a lot. But yeah,
and they came out bad, and I mean that happens. They've done that a lot actually. That's one thing that scares me. That they can't come out like they have so often, just go and not play the first half.
Right.
But anyway, that year, that beast quick, I still look at it now as a missed opportunity. I don't know if I call it a failure because I never really expected to get to the playoffs that year. But I have a very, very complicated feeling about the year because it just feels like a missed opportunity.
That's understandable, though. That makes sense. I get it.
But I think there's a clear distinction between a missed opportunity, a success, and a failure. And that's
what I'm saying. Like I don't know how I feel about it. I don't think it's a failure, but it's definitely a missed opportunity that doesn't feel very awesome.
No,
right. Well, like Ross said earlier, if you go out and you give it your best and you come up a little bit short, is that really a failure? So yeah, that's the word failure is rough.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. To have it used so often against you.
All right, so that's the end of our topics. So on to questions. We actually don't have any questions from the fans. No topics on Facebook or email to us or Twitter to us. So if anyone has any questions and you're still listening, definitely send them our way. We'd love to hear what you guys have to think. But let's talk about predictions. And because it's the playoffs, we have only 4 matchups left. Let's actually go through all of the matchups and we'll do predictions. You don't have to give a score if you don't want to. You can just give who you think is going to win. So let's start in the AFC. The most boring of all of the games is Houston at New England and Pittsburgh at KC. So Zeb, I'm going to let you hit it off on the AFC side. Who do you like in these 2 games?
Well, I'll be rooting for Houston, but I'm expecting New England to throttle them. So I'll go with New England on that one, and then I will, of course, be rooting thoroughly against the Steelers. And I think the Chiefs have an actual chance to pull it off. So I'm going Patriots and Chiefs on the AFC side.
Let's throw in the Packers and the Cowboys. Who do you think is going to win? That's Green Bay at Dallas. Obviously, we're rooting for the Packers if Seattle wins. Host.
I have mixed feelings because I would love to get that championship game in Seattle. And I also feel like everybody's kind of expecting, Rodgers is on a roll. The Packers are looking tough. Dallas has to fall out eventually. Everybody's kind of expecting the Packers to go down there and win. But I'm going to pick Dallas. I think they got a good squad down there. I think they got what it takes to knock off the Packers.
Ross, what about you? Dramatic pause.
I just lost all volume for a minute. I don't know what happened there. I guess I go on next. I agree with Zeb all the way across it. Well, I believe the Chiefs will beat the Steelers. Although if you really push me, I'm not sure if I believe that or if I want that.
Right.
I think the Patriots are going to be the Texans, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be anything. I think Texans are going to unexpectedly play them pretty tough. I think Osweiler kind of had a revelation last week. I think sitting on the bench for a while helped him out. I don't think they're just going to be rolled over like people are thinking.
I hope you're right. I hope they give him a great
I think
game.
it'll be a game. I think it'll be a game.
I hope they beat him, but I hope they give him a great game.
Yeah. And then in the NFC, oh gosh, it's Green Bay and Dallas. It's really hard for me to get a feel for that game. I don't think Green Bay's really, really on fire as much as we think. I think they've played some. It's hard. I want Green Bay to win because I might go to that game if they do, and if Seahawks win. But I don't have a good feel for it. I'm going to go with Green Bay though winning. I'm going to say that the two rookies actually finally start looking a little bit like rookies stakes in the high stakes game.
Yeah. I'm going to say that New England's going to win because as close as maybe Houston will try and make it, I just don't think they have the right players or the right coaching to help them out. I mean, they got really lucky to face a quarterback-less Oakland Raiders team. I mean, realistically, they should have been able to blow out that team. There's no reason why it should have been even within 2 scores. I actually like KC a lot versus Pittsburgh. I don't think Pittsburgh is that great. I think, they have some great tools. I kind of look at them like I do Atlanta, where you have this really high-flying offense, but KC's a really good team this year. I mean, I don't have the greatest faith in Alex Smith, but I think that they can definitely pull it off, especially since it's a home game. I like Green Bay in Dallas, even if they don't have Jordy Nelson and Ty Montgomery might be banged up. Just because rookie quarterbacks they don't do well in the playoffs, and I know Dak has done a really good job of, kind of bucking that trend, but until he does, I'm going to give a lot more credit to a seasoned quarterback in Aaron Rodgers and the fact that his offensive line, whether they're really great or they are just able to get away with some of that extra holding that some might say, I think that's really going to help them out because I don't think the Dallas defense is that scary. The best thing that I've read all week in regards to some of the other playoff games is from The Onion, the satire site, and they said that the New England Patriots will not let Houston distract them from the playoffs. And I thought that was the best and most accurate fake article that I've seen so far.
Wait, The Onion is satire?
Let's talk
that
about
changes everything.
Let's talk about predictions. Let's talk about the game at hand. Saturday, it's a 1:30 Pacific game, so it's not a 10 a.m. game like it was last year against the Panthers. It is Seattle at Atlanta. It's going to be a good matchup. I'm going to let myself go first because I'm so confident. I'm going to say that Seattle wins this game. I'm going to say 33-14. I think that Seattle goes on a roll. I think that they're going to come out really strong. I'm going to go 33-14.
You are confident.
Right, I told you there's something wrong with me this week. So feel free to price this right me. Ross, why don't you go?
Well, I'm not going to price this right, you man. Jesus.
You might flip the score, but
14.
Yeah.
14. Are you talking about halftime?
No. This is a full 60.
Oh, okay. That's after the whole game. Wow. 14. Can we hold Atlanta to 14? I don't think so. I'm going to go 34-20. I think. I think.
Who are you picking to win here?
Well, who do you want to? No, Seahawks. Seahawks going to win.
You're giving. I'm only giving them less points.
6 more points. I'm giving them 2 more scoring. I'm giving
two
them
more
2
scoring
more
drives.
Yeah. 2 more scoring drives. I mean, it doesn't sound like a huge difference, but it really is, right? I mean, you're talking about like they're just basically because we don't get a lot of turnovers anymore. You're saying like we make Matt Ryan punt every time they get the ball except for twice.
Yeah.
I just don't think we're going to do that. I mean, that's a lot of punting when you go Julio Jones.
I don't think Matt Ryan punts anyway. They got a different guy for that.
Well, that's not what they have a different guy. Wait, how many guys do they have on the team? It's Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and that Beasley. That's 4.
If Matt Ryan starts punting, he's the MVP for sure.
People forget the Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback once upon a time was also Danny White.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to throw that out there.
Sure.
Totally random fact for the day. No, but I don't think you can force the Falcons to punt all day long except for twice. I think they could score twice more, but just field goals. I'm going to give them 20 points on 8 or 9 drives because we're going to shorten the game with Thomas Rawls and Procise, looks like, and even Russell running around a little bit. I think PRich is going to have a decent game, but we're not going to throw a lot, so he's not going to have gaudy numbers. And I think, of course, I think Jimmy Graham gets involved, like, big time. And, well, yeah, I see 31-20. And I think it's, I think it's going to be closer than that score implies. I think they're going to have to like get a little desperate towards the end of the game, and we get the ball back and get a touchdown kind of thing. So it's going to look like lopsided. But I think it's going to be a close game most of the game.
All right,
that's my thing.
I think I like Ross. I think I like where you're at. I think that's probably something about where I would go. But since you went there, I'm going to go different. Just for the sake of it, and I'm going to say 38-24 Seahawks win.
Ooh, that's
38.
a lot of scoring.
We're going off.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we really have to put this. The offense is going to have to step up and score some points.
We all put them in the 30s. We all put the Seahawks scoring 30-plus points.
Well, I think because we know what Atlanta's capable of, so.
It's a 25-ranked
I think our offense is well capable of scoring big points, man.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, you guys all think that they're really shitty defense, and Seattle should be able to capitalize.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I don't have any issues with that.
And I think we all know that we're going to have to score some freaking points to win this game. So,
yeah,
there you go.
For sure. All right, well, that is the Seahawks podcast divisional round edition, and
no, you got one last question, man.
We have one last question.
Who's your MVP for this week?
Oh, well, why don't you kick us off with MVP?
Your MVP this week? It's Michael Bennett. Michael Bennett's mad because they knocked him out last game with a dirty hit, and he's mad, and he's going to have like 2.5 sacks, 2 stops behind the line of scrimmage. You know what? He may have an interception on one of those weird things, man.
That would be tight.
Michael Bennett, man. MVP. Write that down. There you go.
I'm going Doug Baldwin. Couple of scores.
Yeah.
Do you think he gets a reverse? Do you think he's like they give him 2 and a reverse? And
I hope he gets 9 bubble screens and he takes 3 of them for touchdowns.
It's bubble screen Saturday.
Just so Sports Hernia can shut up.
You get a bubble screen. You get a bubble screen. You get a bubble screen.
I'm going to pick my MVP. I'm going to pick Bobby Wagner. I think Bobby Wagner has had an incredible year. I think he's going to play really well against those running backs. He's going to play well in coverage. I like him to get a sack. He's going to be there. He's going to get a lot of hits. I see the Seahawks getting really creative on defense here. And then Matty Ice might cough the ball up. Maybe not to Bobby, but maybe to the secondary. So I see this game really Seattle coming up big.
Yeah,
I was gonna predict an interception for Deshaun Shedd, but you know what? I don't think that kid can catch.
He dropped one last week, man. He had one right in his hands, and he dropped it.
That guy has like ball skills like my pet rock.
Yeah, he's getting coverage, man. That's all we need. All right,
dude's 6'2" and long, so that's all I mean, but like he's got to learn to play catch a little bit.
Right.
All right. So shout outs, Russ. Do you have any shout outs this week?
Shout out to Danny White. We still remember you punting and being a quarterback.
It's an economical thing.
Yeah. I don't really have a lot of shout outs. Shout out to you, Delta Airline, who ice. So I may be able to get to Seattle over there next week.
Nice. You should tweet them. Tweet them that we shouted them out.
I don't tweet.
Yeah, you got to work on that.
I don't read the internet, guys. Is that famous Steve Sarkisian quote? Just talking to Brock and Salk, and they're like, "Hey, well, we read this." And I don't read the internet, guys. What does that mean? You don't read
I don't read the internet.
I don't read the internet, guys.
Yeah.
Shout out to my brother Joe, as always. Shout out to Smoke, my best friend, my homie. And shout out to the entire country of Paraguay for no particular reason.
Yeah, Paraguay. Screw Uruguay. It's Paraguay, man. Paraguay's where it's at.
All right. So shout outs to Chase for giving us some love on Facebook before the cast started. Shout outs to the Triple B. They're doing they're doing pizza.
Daniels, is it the quarterback?
Shout outs to all my coworkers who listened to me ramble. They helped me get on TV last week, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah, so check it out. I was on it was on King 5 local. But we are the Seahawks FanTable Streamcast. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending some time with us, and we hope you have a great night. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Hawks.